I absolutely love to share my air dry clay ideas with you, and today I set myself a challenge to make some air dry clay orchids, because I know a lot of you have also asked how I could make some air dry clay flowers. So I really hope you enjoy this craft tutorial. Orchids are so delicate, so it really is a challenge. I typically use DAS air dry clay, but as we all know, it can be really fragile when made really quite thin. So I needed to find a slightly different brand of air dry clay and see how that works. Smarta is a new brand of air dry clay, and I've also got my recipe for the homemade air dry clay, which is like a cold porcelain clay. I will make an orchid out of the DAS air dry clay, so please watch to the end and you can see how I get on making that. But I'm going to use this Smarta brand of air dry clay to show you how I've been working on these orchids. It's a beautiful soft and silky air dry clay, and you just need to knead it a little bit and roll it out first, and it is beautiful, it really is. I do most of my projects on a smooth tile, but with this clay you can also use a cutting board or any other smooth board. Start with a small ball of clay and we're going to roll this out. You can use a rolling pin or a glass or anything smooth and round that you have to hand. Because the orchids are nice and delicate and thin, I'm just going to roll this out as thinly as I can. And I guess you're probably thinking that this is going to be so fragile, so please do wait till the end and watch all the way to the end to see how we get on and see how the challenge turns out. I have the clay really thin now, probably less than 2 millimeters as you can see, but this is lovely, soft and flexible, and it really is a nice brand. And as you can see, it is air dry clay. It's an air dry clay soft modelling clay. Just make sure when you are not using it, you seal the packets back up like with all air dry clay. I have one of the orchids here to try and copy and recreate. They really are beautiful and delicate flowers, and I just hope I can do them justice with this clay project. I designed a few different ways to create these, but I've finalised with this design where I have these little templates that I've made and cut out. I love to use templates because it means you can repeat that design and make many more that are all really quite similar. You can draw out your own templates really quite easily, or find these in the description below. I managed to get a few little bits of fluff on here, so just make sure you've got a nice clear surface before you work. You can cut these out with a knife or with a sharp implement like this pin. So if you just get yourself a block of clay, there's always something else you can use for the tools to create your creations. This project is on the trickier side, but I did really want to show you. So if you'd like some more simple and basic air dry clay project ideas, you can find lots of those over on my channel. So I've cut that out, remembering to cut the slits between the petals as well. While I've got the clay still nice and thin, I've got space to cut this next little template out as well. This project really is quite a bit fiddly, but just take your time, and as I always say, just try and relax and enjoy the process. Some of us like delicate and intricate and for things to take quite a bit of time, but others of us don't, and that is perfectly fine. Like any other air dry clay, take what you haven't used and roll it back together in a nice little ball, ready to use again in a minute. As you can see, this clay is so soft and lovely, and I'm really excited that I found this new brand. Really delicately lift the clay from your smooth surface, and we're going to give the petals some more shape. You can get metal tools with a ball on the end to make the petals more petal-like shape, and you can also get silicone moulds to squash the clay between and to make them more petal-like as well. But I don't have either of those, so I'm going to show you how I do mine. Again, using tools from our home, I'm sure you all have a pen or a barrel like this that we can use as our tool. Hold the clay really delicately, making sure we look after that centre section so that we don't let it split there. And I'm simply just taking the barrel of the pen and rolling it round all the edges of the petals. And this thins out the outside and gives it that extra delicate look. And also curls the petals and makes them more petal-like. I'm being really delicate and just taking my time. I think I picked something really tricky here, the orchid, as they're joined together like this. So maybe I should do like a rose or something like that. So let me know in the comments below if there's anything else you'd like to see me make. Thank you so much to all those that have recently bought me a coffee on the Ko-fi site. It really is appreciated, and it just helps me supplement my income and encourages me to continue to produce these videos. I've gone round the whole of this piece, and as you can see, it just gives it a little bit more of an organic shape. These two petals overlap the top petals, so we can just put them in place just like that while we set it aside to air dry. It's good to have a real orchid as reference, but if you don't have one, a photo or even this video is enough to come back to and watch. These will be connected together with a little piece of wire, so you just need to add a little hole in the centre just like that. If you want your orchids to be a little bit more 3D, you can find something small and smooth and place this underneath and set it to dry just like this. This is Smarta air dry clay in pink that are ready and dry, ready for another project. You can really see the shape of it coming together already, and they really are quite pretty. If you wanted to add some of the veins of the petals in, you could do this with a blunt end of a pen like this, just before you set it to dry. And there we go, we leave that in a safe place to dry, and it really won't take very long as it's really quite thin. Moving on to the centre section of the orchid, another really fiddly bit, but you can pinch the clay together to make those strands a little bit longer and thinner. In my opinion, these bits aren't essential if you do want to leave them off. And then we do exactly the same as we did for the other petals and roll out and flatten these out. We want to achieve the look of them being nice and delicate, which they are really nice and delicate at this stage. But this clay is really holding up really quite well, and don't forget I will show you at the end me making some out of some Das clay. Take a really tiny ball of the clay, and then we'll need some wire that's got a bit of sturdiness to it but is not too thick. As you can see, this one's about the thickness of a pin. I'm not sure the gauge of it, but just use what you have or what you can get hold of. Cut a piece approximately 10 centimeters in length and bend over the very tip of it. I have some white glue here, and I'm simply adding a little dot on the end and inserting it into my very tiny bit of clay. Mould it onto the wire and form a slight little point, and then we're going to bend the wire just like this. The beauty of making something organic like a flower is it really doesn't have to be perfect, and every one can be slightly different. I'm making a little hole in this section just in the centre. There's a little mark on the template where you can make the hole. Add a tiny little bit of glue, and then we're going to insert our wire through that little hole. Gently mould the flap of air dry clay around the wired section just like this. We then need to bend these little sections around and hold them up and let them dry in place like that. So try and do a little balancing act with the things that you have on your table. Maybe what I'll do next time is get a little bottle top and make a hole in it and let it balance and dry in there. Now that we've made these two sections, we have two more petals to make. We can make these in exactly the same way. As I'm making these in the Smarta clay, it's working really well and it's a lovely product to use, but I am feeling a little bit terrified about making some out of some regular Das air dry clay, so let's see how I get on with that after I finish showing you how to make these. Once you have the two petals made, make a hole as we did before with a little pin. As I said before, you can create the little veins that you find on the orchid. You could either paint these on at the end, or you can take either a blunt or a sharp implement and just see if you can recreate those. Or you can find little moulds that you can mould the petals in if you wish to do that too. We can now leave that to dry. I'm just going to leave it overnight and come back to it. Oh, and there's just one tiny little detail right in the centre you might want to add. Get a really tiny little ball of clay, and we can add that in once it's all dry as well. The parts of my air dry clay orchid are now set and fully dry. This clay really is quite robust. Here's a slightly thicker petal that I made out of some pink clay, and you can see it still has a little bit of flexibility to it. My new petals are really quite thin and I don't want to overbend them too much, but as you can see they're really nice and robust and sturdy. Let's put the orchid together now, so I'm just going to use some white craft glue, PVA glue or Mod Podge, whichever you have, and we're going to take our wire and insert this section into the hole of our 3-petal section. Take a fine brush and add that glue just behind to hold this in place. It's really exciting to see the orchid come together, and I think the challenge hopefully should be really successful. But I know you're thinking that the real challenge is the air dry clay that's the DAS type of air dry clay. Next we can add the next 2 petals and add the glue in between as well. Please do come and follow me over on Instagram. Over there I show you some more craft projects that I hope you'll enjoy as well. This clay is working really well for this project because it has a little bit of flex in it and it's really not too fragile. Our orchid is starting to really look like a proper orchid now, so add any glue where you need to add it. A peg comes in really handy again here, and we can just keep everything where we want it to and then balance this on a glass or something similar while it dries, and I'll leave these overnight to make sure that glue does fully dry. You can go on and make so many of these, and you could also attach them all together and create a lovely orchid plant with them. The tiny little detail section we made before, we can just add a tiny little bit of glue in the centre there and drop it in place and push it into position and let that dry too. The glue is now dry and we can add some little details with some paint for the little detail in the centre there. I'm using acrylic paint for this. If you have any questions, please do comment below. I love to hear from you, or if there's anything you'd do different or any advice or tips you can give us, please also comment below. First of all, I'm just adding a little bit of the yellow in the centre here. As I say, I have lots more air dry clay projects for you on this channel and lots more coming soon as well. Please do hit the like button if you're enjoying this video, and also subscribe if you haven't done yet, and hit the bell button so you get notified of all my new videos. These orchids have some nice pinky purple details in the centre, so I'm just taking a really fine brush and adding some of the little dots, and then I'll add some of the little lines as well. Adding these little details really does make the orchid come to life, and it's a really nice, delicate part of the process, which I do really enjoy. I absolutely love a white orchid, but you can do any colour you wish. If you can't get hold of the Smarta clay, you could also try my air dry clay recipe, which is like a cold porcelain, and this petal here is made out of that. You could also create this in polymer clay or sugar paste. Now for the moment of truth, making an orchid from my DAS air dry clay. I always tell you not to go too thin on the clay, because when it's too thin it is fragile and it is brittle. I think it's absolutely wonderful, but it's better to have a little bit of thickness to it to give it that robustness. So this is simply me challenging myself, as I know you would have asked the question otherwise. I'm repeating the exact same process with this clay, being super delicate and treating it really carefully. And I'm actually really enjoying myself. It's really quite therapeutic. And there we have it, the finished orchid. Because the air dry clay has a slight grey tinge to it, I'm just painting on a little bit of white acrylic paint, and as you do this you can add the veins and making it look a little bit more realistic. It's really fragile and I don't expect it to survive any knocks. But challenge complete. I'm not sponsored by the DAS clay or the Smarta clay, I just love their products and I wanted to share them with you. Smarta clay comes in a huge array of colours, and as you can see from this craft tutorial, it's really versatile. If you'd like to see me make anything else, then please do let me know in the comments below. So go and head over to Instagram and I'll show you some more of the final pictures of these. I really hope you've enjoyed this air dry clay video and I can't wait to share lots more with you. Thank you for watching and bye for now.